welcome to episode 228 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Manchester, and with me on the line from Chicago, it's the Godfather, Dave Harbarger.
Stan, I wanted to wish you a very happy Tears of the Kingdom Day, my friend.
Oh, you got it?
Because guess what? That's what my children and wife have bequeathed to me on Father's Day. Yes.
So it's what, 7 a.m. your time?
It's 8:15 a.m. on Father's Day right now.
8:15. Have you plugged in to yours yet?
Nope, I just got it about an hour ago. And then, I had to finish the rest of my daily ablutions. I managed to sneak in a weekend shower before I talk to you, which doesn't always happen.
No, it does not. Getting a shower in is a negotiation these days.
Any other Father's Day stuff we want to talk about? Negotiating showers?
Brunch. I had a great brunch. I had a croque madame.
What's Father's Day like in the UK? Is it a thing? Is it not a thing? Or
yeah, it's a thing. I guess it's just like American Father's Day. Maybe there's less barbecuing.
Mm-hmm.
The English, at least in Manchester, like sure they barbecue from time to time, but I don't feel like it has the same barbecue culture that America has, where barbecuing is like this weird gendered holiday tradition.
Yes,
in America.
Well, and it's also like a piece of gear, like it's a piece of dad gear here all the time. I just got a new Weber grill for what it's worth, and I'm very excited about it. I took pictures of it because I was proud of it the other day after I put it together. And I don't even like to barbecue that much. And I'm still like, I'm going to get the nice one.
You have to be a man in America.
With a barbecue, with a piece of, yeah.
That's not actually what the show's about. This show is about something much more exciting, I think, than a holiday.
Oh, yeah.
On this week's show, we're joined by a very special guest, returning to the podcast after starting an exciting new job as creative director of Magic the Gathering Online. It's the one and only Ryan Spain, who's going to join us to talk about the past, present, and future of Magic Online.
Yeah, unbelievable. Stan, thank you so much for coordinating, working with Ryan to find a time to bring him on. Really excited to have Ryan here. Everybody knows I'm a longtime fan of limited resources. I gush about it a little bit when we talk to Ryan at the beginning, but Ryan's a really interesting guy, has had a long history working with Magic and around Magic. He's been a streamer. He was one of the first podcasters, I think, to really make a huge platform for podcasting, together with Marshall Sutcliffe, and then also has done two separate stints at one stint at Wizards, and then now this separate second stint at Daybreak Games, back involved with Magic Online again.
That's right. Ryan will join us in just a minute, but before he does, let's housekeep. We got one new patron to join the Dive Down Nation. It is John. Thank you, John, or Jack, whichever you prefer. If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can find us over at patreon.com/thedivedown. Probably the best way to support our show.
Mm-hmm.
Another decent way to support our show is with some Dive Down merch, which you can find at thedivedown.com/store. Very soft t-shirts, baseball hats for that scorching summer sun. The solstice is upon us now. More sunlight than any other time of the year if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, we have scarves and hoodies too.
Right. And also, if you happen to be as far north as Stan is right now, apparently the sun never sets. The sun never sets on Manchester.
That's right. I sent David a video last night from 10 p.m. You must admit, it looked bright.
It did look bright.
It looked bright. It's dark in Chicago at 10 o'clock, right?
You were still wearing sunglasses.
Dusk, right? At 10 p.m. in Chicago, I literally don't remember anymore. It's dusky.
At 10 p.m. in Chicago?
Yeah.
It's dark already.
It's dark?
Already. Yeah.
It wasn't dark, was it, David?
No,
it was not dark last night. All right, yeah, Manchester, it's cool, but that's not what this housekeeping was about. This housekeeping is about some of our sponsors, including Mana Traders. You can use our Mana Traders code, the Dive Down 2023, to get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards on Magic Online, the subject of this episode. You can also use our promo code for Barrister and Man, the Dive Down M23. It's like a core set for promotions and fragrances. The Dive Down M23 gets you 15% off your first order from Barrister and Man. And then, of course, you can save some money on actual physical cards from our friends over at Nerd Rage Gaming with promo code DIVE8 to get 8% off your orders from Nerd Rage Gaming.
All right. As we get on to housekeeping, though, we just want to talk one more minute about our friends at Barrister and Man. Barrister and Man has some new great things going on this week. We know that you are this summer. We know you already missed on Father's Day. We missed on Father's Day as well. We received gifts. I forgot to send any, though, because that's who I am. But Stan, why don't you tell us about what's going on with Barrister Man right now?
Yeah, there's some really exciting new products coming out from our friends Will and team over Barrister and Man. One of the biggest additions is called Lavender Interrupted, which is, I'm being told, a very sexy new fragrance that offers this captivating blend of lavender, hoe wood, geranium, plum, cinnamon, clove. It sounds like a tea, like an herbal tea, but it is in fact a fragrance for you to wear. Enchanting, beguiling. It's going to leave you feeling utterly seduced.
Wow. We're going to talk about how much you've been seduced by Big T now that you live in the UK at some point in the future. But I know there's one more scent that you wanted to talk about as well.
Oh, there's a couple. So Nordost, which is Barrister and Man's love letter to oranges, is back. This is one that offers very gentle citrus notes and even has a touch of wood smoke. And we talked about the summer. It's hot. We're sweating. You can also get a splash cologne. This is one that has a hint of menthol. It keeps you more cool and refreshed. For those looking for maybe some liquid happiness, there's 2 new bath soaps as well. Fougère Classique, a rich floral fern scent. And then there's the Verveine bath soap, a delightful lemon verbena blend. And then, I don't know if we've talked about these yet, but there's these black sheep shaving towels that Barrister and Man sells from their friends at Lancaster Razor Works, which you can use for drying yourself. You can use it for drying your shaving gear, dry your armpits, whatever is moist or damp and needs a padding from a towel. Check out the Black Sheep shaving towels over at B&M. Check out these exciting products before they're gone. B&M products, they don't last forever. They're always adding new fragrances because the old ones go away. And if any of these sound appealing to you, and they should, because they sound appealing to me, and I'm an idiot when it comes to fragrances. I just know this stuff smells good. You can get a discount using promo code TheDiveDownM23. Gets you 15% off if you've never ordered from B&M before. If you have ordered from B&M before, just leave a note. The Dive Down sent us. We love the Dive Down. We love B&M, so they know that you are a friend to both of us.
Absolutely. And with that, let's bring on Ryan Spain.
All right, and without further ado, we have with us a returning guest with a new job. Since the last time you were on, you are now the creative director of Magic the Gathering Online at Daybreak Games, none other than Ryan Spain. Ryan, welcome back.
Thank you. Hello. Good to be here. How you been?
Thriving.
Stan's moved to a new country since the last time you talked to he and Shane.
That's right.
Northern
I'm
England.
British now.
How's that going?
I just had a candy. This is a true story. I just had a bag of candy called Teeth and Lips, and they're gummy human teeth and lips, and it was delicious. So whatever people say about British food, it's all wrong.
As long as it's made of sugar, it's going to be pretty good.
Exactly. So, Ryan, I was not on the show the last time, but I'm just going to take a minute here because I don't know. I'm sure Stan and Shane did not mention this the last time we were on the call, but I'm a huge fan of limited resources and go all the way back to episode 1.
Really?
For what it's worth. Yes.
You're a Ryan, as they say.
I remember the day. Yes, I am a Ryan, actually. I'm a Ryan Brian combo. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I did want to say one thing because you and I actually talked one time and you on Magic Online a long time ago. You have the distinction of being one of 2 people in the world who have recognized where my Magic Online screen name came from unprompted. Oh, yeah? Stan is the other one, actually, on the phone call right now. So my Magic Online screen name is Halo Bender. And you were like, great band. And I was like, oh my God. somebody recognized. I was like, Ryan is cool. But I was just reaching out to say thank you for the podcast.
It wouldn't be a huge stretch to say that I stole my wife from Calvin.
From Calvin Johnson? What?
Yeah. That is a stretch. It's not. It's a stretch. They had my wife is friends and with lots of local Seattle musicians and bands, and so she and Calvin were our old friends, and they danced for a little bit, but it was never anything.
That's
serious.
funny.
Yeah.
I remember the time you mentioned to me too that you were like, yeah, the guy who's the drummer and built the spill like made our wedding cake or something. Like
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
this is a long time
Scott
ago.
Clough.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, but the reason I bring it up too is just to thank you from the bottom of my heart for like, that show and the work that you and Marshall did on that show really inspired, I think, ultimately part of us to do the dive down many, many years later. So much appreciate it. And I am one of those people who's like, podcasts mean a lot to me. You guys were there when I was doing, learning about Tilt from you all and all that kind of stuff in those early episodes. It's like really
I'm
formative.
still working on it myself.
Well, me too. Right. But thank you for that. And of course, thank you for everything else. We're super excited to talk to you about Magic Online today, of course.
So am I. Glad to be here. Glad you're having me.
Yeah, and look, Magic Online is important to us as well. We're at this age, Dave and I, that I'm sure you'll understand. We're like, Magic Online is the thing that keeps us connected to Magic. We're dads. It's hard to get to the LGS every week. We're lucky to get to a bigger tournament when they happen. And we're really thrilled, not only for just to have you on, but like excited to see that you're back on the Magic Online team.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, and when that announcement came from Daybreak of who was on the MTGO team and seeing your familiar face on there, I think for a lot of players, including ourselves, it was an indicator that MTGO, though it's going through this big change of moving to Daybreak, it still will have like an advocate and a steady hand of someone that we know loves Magic. And I'm sure the rest of the Daybreak team loves it as well, but I don't know that the other ones had podcasts.
The most of the team, the development team that has been making Magic it's had a huge team over the 20 plus years of its existence. But the core team that has been making the game for the last 5 to 10 largely moved over. There was a couple people who either didn't transition or moved on after, but it's really the crew that understands this game really well, continuing to do great work on it and under new management. Basically, that's the way to think of it.
Can you tell us a little bit about, before we kind of get into specific questions and everything, I'd love to hear about just kind of what the role of the creative director is in the sense of Magic Online, right? And also just kind of maybe how that compares to the job you used to have there, if that helps illustrate kind of what you do on every day or what's on your mind every day.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the titles, it's a small crew, and when it comes to small crews, titles are the thing on your resume or your plaque or whatever, but it doesn't always define what you do moment to moment. It's a world where there's hats all around, and the hats need to be picked up, put on, and the stuff needs to get done. And really, creative director is emblematic of my skill set that I'm applying to those, the hats that I'm putting on, which encompasses game design, art direction in terms of what art from sets we're using in game and in our forums and that kind of thing. So like little creative direction in that sense. But it's really, I was hired because I know this game. I know what it's good at and where it can use improvement. And so fundamentally, it was about my ability to hold a vision for where this game can go and work with a team on getting it there. And that's really what creative director is about in this sense. And in a sense, it is a lot like the job I had previously, except maybe I'm a little higher up in terms of where my authority is in decision making.
Right.
I was more someone who would offer opinions and information for decision makers, and now it's more that I'm a decision maker. So,
got it.
But in terms of the skill sets I'm applying to Magic Online, it's very similar to what I was doing back at Wizards.
Awesome.
Cool. We'd love to talk about that transition. We've got a lot of questions that we're eager to ask you that I've always wanted to ask someone at Magic, Wizards, Magic Online. And now this is our chance to finally get to pick your brain.
Yes, I will. I will give you what I can.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Hit me with what you got.
So you were on Limited Resources about a month ago. You were talking about the cube, the vintage cube, but you did share a really interesting anecdote about the transition from Wizards to Daybreak, and you described it like a hand transplant of having to actually reconnect arteries and capillaries and tendons and muscles. And I thought that was like a very good visual. But what we haven't really heard yet is, what are some of like the actual trials and tribulations that go into porting a game from one company to another? Like, can you give us insights into what that was like? What did you guys learn, and what have you accomplished in that process?
The one of the a big challenge of it was that it's hard, people want timelines, but when you're in a troubleshooting place with something, which is where you end, like, because you're taking, the reason I use the hand transplant analogy, I think it's good because you understand it at its core, what I'm talking about, but then you think about the detail work to get it to actually function, and you're like, oh yeah, that's really complicated, isn't it? And it's like, this is a game that was being supported by the machine that is Wizards of the Coast. And now it's a game that is being supported by a different company. And it's so many different things to make sure are working. And the process is almost like, or repairing a car, all right, turn it on. Oh, no, not, what is it? It's that gasket. And then you fix the gasket, try it again. The gasket is fixed, yay, but it uncovered that the next step in the that's not working is this one beneath it. And you don't know how many things there are necessarily to fix under the gasket because you just got to do it one layer at a time. And so it was just a challenge in that way. It's like it was just a lot of people, again, going back and rerunning it, debug, and it's not something that you can do with the snap of the fingers. It's just a lot of hard work from a lot of brilliant engineers, and got it done.
But you guys didn't have to rebuild Magic Online.
In a sense, you do need to rebuild it, right? Like because you're taking, in the sense that what is building software? Like, you have this software that's on Wizards resources, and it needs to be rebuilt over on these other resources, but it is software, so you can copy it. It's not like you need to redesign the thing, but that's the thing. Copy and pasting the Magic Online code and putting it in a new server doesn't get the job done. There's so much more, right? So that was the real challenge, challenge, and just the thing that makes it take a long time. Whereas if Daybreak had acquired an entire studio that was running Magic Online as a complete entity, it would have been easy. You just kind of roll it in as you wish, but it's a machine that's already running. But in this case, we had to disconnect the machine and reconnect it, and that was a challenge.
Was that an opportunity too, to do some stuff you guys wanted to do, or no? You were just maintaining.
Yeah, you at that point you're just trying to make the copy look the same.
Got it. Yeah. Understood.
Then,
yeah.
Is there any anecdotes you can share of what happens? Like, what was something that broke in staging that you had to correct before you can push to production that maybe was an unanticipated?
Oh man, you're talking to the wrong guy.
Okay.
Like there's so many little things. I guess the one like an example of the type of thing, like, oh yeah, like there's just a lot of, oh yeah. And like we're moving over content on the website, and there's all these links that are Wizards links, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. You have to
redirects. You can't just copy and paste the whole Magic Online website. So that finding all those little details. It's the capillaries. The capillaries again and again. Just say, oh, do you remember this one? And then you put it on the list and get it done.
All right. Well, thanks for helping us understand the transition and just all the hard work that went into that. When you think about Magic Online going forward, kind of its place in the ecosystem with Magic players, how do you think about that when you compare it, especially to the other main outlets that we have, like Arena and Paper and that kind of stuff?
Well, that's exactly how to think about it. What are the other things happening in expressions of this game, and how is yours different? And this is, even when I applied for the job, I immediately started thinking about this factor and what is special about Magic Online, knowing that Wizards has Arena that they're moving forward with, but and they, the paper game is strong, but what is Magic Online providing? And so when you break that down, the first and foremost, depth of catalog, right? There's no digital expression of Magic that has the card catalog depth of Magic Online. It's kind of insane.
It goes back to 2001. Am I right? Is it 2000?
It launched in, I think, 2002, but it was in beta in 2001, and but it has basically, I mean, it doesn't have 100% of cards. It doesn't have dexterity cards, anti cards, and experientially problematic cards like it maybe even does have. Do we have the extra turn or extra game one? Anyway,
Right.
the point is, there's these, and there's a list. There's people, there are champions of just basically every card in Magic. So believe me, the ones we don't have, people let us know,
right?
and they're on our list, but. We have the most complete catalog of functioning Magic cards in digital Magic. That's why that's where it all starts, is that depth of catalog. And what does that lead to in terms of the pillars of what we offer to the community that can't be offered elsewhere? Primarily, it's I see it as a 3-pillar thing. We have eternal formats that are paper accurate or close to paper. In a sense, the tail is wagging the dog on a lot of these eternal formats now, in the sense that they get their most play on Magic Online. So even if the paper version of Legacy has card X that Magic Online doesn't have yet, it's almost like the more real Legacy is still the Magic Online one, just because it's what gets played most. That's not it. I'm not saying we want all the cards. Like, truly, because eternal formats are one of the pillars, I've said it internally, and I'll say it out externally. A parity with the paper format is a priority. It's not something we can always meet, but it's always a priority. We understand that that the farther we slip out of paper authenticity, the less good people feel about the format they're playing, and we don't want that. So of course we are looking to get that Venn diagram of paper versus Magic Online format readiness to be an overlap, but it's probably never going to happen, but it's always a priority to get it as close as possible.
I mean, when you think about like Legacy, that's harder. Vintage, it's harder, right? But with Modern and Pioneer, it's pretty easy to have them be a perfect circle. I mean, I don't know if there's really anything. I can't think of anything that's missing for Magic Online for either one of those formats.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
it's Commander, Legacy, and Vintage that have fans who wish certain cards were available to them.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's almost preservation in that sense, because it's like some of those things are never going to be accessible to people. Like Vintage is never going to be accessible to most people, especially at a competitive level. Legacy, much more frequently than it used to be. So, I mean, that's an interesting way to think about it for sure. So that first pillar.
Exactly. That we effectively are those formats because we are the way in which they are accessible,
right?
In which people who haven't been collecting cards since '93 can play. Another card catalog depth win is our ability to do boutique limited. Of course, Vintage Cube is the crown jewel of that, but the depth of cards means that you can do all sorts of cube themes and dip way into the past for lots of nostalgic cards, and that is another huge pillar, the specialty limited, and the not only cube, but like the ability to flash back popular formats of old. Like we just had Invasion, IPA draft,
right?
And that's I don't care if that's never going to be on Arena, right? Like, I mean, I should never say never, but
almost certainly.
I just don't think that will ever be a goal for them to offer that as an authentic draft format. It doesn't make any sense to me for them to ever work towards getting to that place, but we're already there. Right. So we get to offer these truly authentic retro formats in limited as well, and that's exciting. And then, of course, Commander. Commander being the third pillar of the card catalog depth and what it enables us to offer the Magic community, and Commander has the bonus of the 3+ player Magic as well. Mm-hmm. I bristle against calling 3+ player Magic multiplayer. Multiplayer is 2.
Right. That's true. It's still 2. That makes sense. Yeah.
So 3+ player Magic Commander is another place that I don't see Arena heading towards anytime soon, at least not in any kind of full-featured, full catalog Commander level.
No way.
So those are the pillars that we have to offer the community. And that has dictated the priorities we have in figuring out our roadmap.
Brian, when you talk about the tail leading the dog, though, in terms of trying to match paper to the online experience, does that include bug fixes as well? I feel like a recent example is Archfiend of the Dross with metamorphic alteration. For a while, that wasn't working on MTGO. I think recently that was finally fixed. It was part of that motivated by the fact that we're seeing that combo appear in paper more frequently, and we need to mimic that online as well.
For sure. If a card doesn't work in the forest and there's nobody there to play it, does it
right?
Is it a bug?
Yeah,
you know?
It's a totally fair question. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, so yes, the Magic is driven by the playability of its card objects, right? That's what what does that do? Right. I want it, and when players decide that they want this and we don't have it for them, yeah, it absolutely rises to the top of the queue. And but it's a never-ending whack-a-mole of bugs because you're constantly introducing new complications.
Right.
Every set is a new complication that has to work with 30,000 prior parts, and it's almost impossible not to introduce some unexpected behaviors and unwanted behaviors. And we do fast follows. We flip stuff around real quick when it's a new set. But we do, there's a backlog, and people can vote on it. We have forums now. The Daybreak has set up forums and Discord for Magic Online, and you can give a voice to what you think ought to be fixed next, on the card list in those spaces. So we are listening to players on that front, both their words and the behaviors, and of course tournament reports as well. Yeah, it's like, oh geez, this card is on the rise and it's not working for us. And honestly, our players, are not shy about letting us know exactly what they want, which is great. It's helpful. But that just means that as soon as a card starts to rise that way, we do hear about it. Because players are very keen to let us know as soon as something is becoming relevant. Like Minsk and Boo, we didn't have for a while, right. And we heard about that right away, and it immediately became a priority. But it's tough because you're aiming for parity, but you only have so many card engineers and so much time, and some things are just more difficult to fix than others, right? So it's all a calculus that leads to hopefully this steady pace of fixed cards and address.
I can't even imagine the complexity of even designing one single card that works right in Magic. I work on websites. Like I'm a creative director, graphic design background person. I don't do development, but even knowing how hard it is to just get parallax animation to work right on a website I'm working on, that doesn't interact with anything. That doesn't change states based on what something else does to it. I can't even imagine. I'm sure there's, over time there's a system for certain interactions, but that's wild. Every single card is a tiny, cog that has to do several different things and has to change based on other things. So I can't even imagine how hard that is for the developers to do.
And obviously some are easier than others. And that's a lesson we've learned over the years, and where communication between digital and paper had gotten a lot better during my time at Wizards, and is still pretty good now. Although, paper still dictates. You when you have concerns as the digital player, you let the team know, and there's a lot of back and forth between the digital Magic makers and the paper Magic makers. And the paper Magic makers, to be fair, are generally very accommodating and are really working to refactor things so that they're more codable, right? So that they still get what they want, but we get a thing that's more codable. And so that's a key conversation that happens basically every set.
We hear sometimes from the Wizards people that sets take 2 to 3 years to design. At what point in that timeline does digital teams, either Arena or MTGO, start making things work online for what's to come in the future?
There is rather than try to name a time, like a number of weeks or whatever, I will say that there is this tipping point, but you've identified a very important thing. If you take early design ideas and bring them to digital and say, we are thinking about this, or we're heading towards this, but you're not fully committed, you're using up a bunch of time to put a bunch of stuff into people's brains and ask them to think about it and consider it. And if you then immediately throw that out and move and do something else, then you've wasted a bunch of valuable time resources with the people who make the game. And so the designers are trying to bring it to digital when they're they feel pretty darn good that this is where they want to go with things. But it's still changeable. They can still really adjust things if there's strong pushback, and that's really the sweet spot to get digital involved, to give the most early warning for problematic areas while not randomizing people with things that don't matter yet.
Yeah, it's a classic problem. Is there a gap between now? I'm sure that Arena and Magic Online, not equivalent. I'm sure they build things totally differently. But is there a gap between things that are implementable on Magic Online and Arena that is something that you all have to be aware of? Or is it generally like, hey, if the Arena team thinks it's implementable, then we can also do it too?
It's pretty close, but no, they're different systems, right? Yeah, they are different rules engines and different code bases and different challenges, how it interacts with the UI and that kind of thing. So I would say overall, it tends to be in a similar space, but there are individual cards and individual mechanics where it's like, oh, that's easy for them and hard for us, or vice versa. That does happen.
Interesting.
Or easier or harder. Not.
I'm sure.
Usually
nothing's easy.
Super extreme,
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that Daybreak is forecasting to implement, and even the one that we know is coming soonest, which is two-factor authorization. Something that you guys announced at least 6 months ago, maybe more.
I actually brought up the article because I know we had mentioned stuff. It looks like in October 11th, 2022, there's a State of Magic Online Transition to Daybreak article on MTGO.com. You can all check out. I'll even throw it in our chat here. So if you want to share it with people, you can. But this is where we were at that point in time. Things are a little different now. Not too much, but I'll talk to that. Yeah, so in this article, I laid out some goals for Magic Online that, kind of, like I say, relate to some of these awarenesses of our competitive advantages. But number one was multi-factor authentication, or two-factor authentication. We ended up calling it. It's technically multi-factor but I think people just mostly get what we're only offering two. So you get to pick your username, password, and then one of these new ones. But that was a thing that players have wanted for a long time, and we internally we've wanted a long time. This is a game in which you can trade game objects player to player. And when you have game objects that can be traded player to player, you really owe it to those players to give them some extra layer of security from having their accounts taken over. And it's all, and look, and because it happens, and it happens publicly. People complain about it on Twitter, and it doesn't matter if it's not our fault. Like, it's not, we didn't make your path. It's like, that doesn't matter. The point is we're not providing the tools for a sense of security and a feeling like I have another layer here. And now we do, and it's great. And it's a good tool. And now when people go to customer service and they get helped with these types of issues, they can immediately be told, and now put on two-factor, and it's just a good peace of mind. And it was also a nice place to start. We have, like I say, we did lose some engineers in the course of the transition, so we were running a little low on person hours, and we're growing in the team again, which is great. You can also check. Awesome. There's job listings. We've made hirings. We're building back up to full strength so that we can get all this stuff done. And at the time, we needed to get creative, and we have kind of a sister studio that is Daybreak has a sister studio that had some available resources, dev resources, to basically apply towards Magic Online, and we felt this was a perfect first project for external developers who are not as familiar with the code base as our internal team, because this is not a magic feature, right? It's a known, well understood, globally offered tech feature, and so it was a great place to start in onboarding new devs, and it was really one guy, and he crushed it. Thanks, Kaylee.
Oh, cool.
So you can all thank Kaylee for
Thanks, Kaylee.
Killer work.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And so that's exciting too, to see talented engineers coming on board and help making this game better, like immediately. So it's a very exciting time and a great first step on that roadmap. The next one on my list in the article was improved metrics and tools. And this is super not exciting to you all. I'm sorry. It might be. If you're into tools and metrics, it may be. But for the average Magic player, you're like, but that's not the thing I want. I wanted. And I just have to tell you, like, this is a game that needs some serious refactoring in certain areas, or we need to, it's emergency time. Like another one of my analogies for working on any game as a service, but especially Magic Online, is the Grommet train. In Wallace and Grommet, The Wrong Trousers, Grommet is on the front of a toy train that has no tracks in front of it, but he's got a box of tracks. And he's sitting on the front of the train, throwing down track ahead of it. And that's the kind of mode you can get into on a game as a service, because the train never stops. And job number one is to make sure track is in front of the train.
Right.
And so it has been, but the train is falling apart in some places,
right.
And we need to fix it. And we are, and I'm so excited about, like, for me internally, I'm like, yes, we're going to take care of some of these issues that make it so hard to make this game. Right. And that's so as Rocket approves, I guess.
Oh, Rocket.
As we, sorry, Rocket distract has derailed my brain a little bit. Speaking of trains. So anyway, now that we are getting our engineering team up, we can focus on these issues and focus on infrastructure, making sure the train is solid, so that then we can add cars and do all this great stuff that we want to do to make this the experience that everybody wants. But we need to tighten the ship. And then, and also get some visibility. There's two layers of the data. Like when I talk about metrics, right? We lost a lot of metric visibility in the transition because that was part of the capillary hookup, right? So like we're still kind of reconnecting data and metrics on the Daybreak side, and they are essential to making sure that we are doing the right things moving forward. Getting visibility into things that have historically not been part of the data hooks of Magic Online are going to help us make sure we're doing the right things and measure them and watch player behavior and learn from it in ways that we just don't do right now.
That's awesome.
And so it's not as exciting maybe as a feature that would affect your gameplay directly, but I hope you're excited that the ship is getting the nice overhaul that it needs to stay afloat for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about our perspective too, we're a podcast mostly focused on modern, and then Pioneer is kind of second for us. So we're in that middle space, right? As modern becomes more and more of an elder format in some ways, like you said, it's going to live on Magic Online. There's more games played of modern on Magic Online than anywhere else. I play Magic Online many times more than I play paper at this point in time. So that's awesome to hear that you guys are thinking about the big kind of like infrastructure, maybe improving. I guess the thing I would ask is, are there a couple of things that, like, from player experience perspective, is it also kind of like, well, Magic Online is sort of infamous for crashing sometimes on certain people's systems. Like, is this the type of stuff that you're seeing if you can fix and how to fix and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, or
right?
Like, exactly. Or I mean, a very simple example of the type of thing I'm talking about. This is getting a little in the weeds, but if you want to know how the sausage is made, it's like there's a lot of new frames in Magic, right? So like it's almost like it's a selling point now. Every new set has 5 new frame types that the game has never had before, and each of those is a lot of work because of how the system currently works. Right? You set up Magic Online builds cards, right? And the frame is one of the elements of that build, and it happens to be one of the places where we are losing ground on like the size battle.
Just the size of the application.
Right. Yeah. And so and people have noticed that too, that it's been getting bigger, and it's like, yeah, because of the way we do frames and because of the huge volume of frames that they're just kind of dumping now, it's noticeable. And so a frame refactor, changing the way the frame system works so that it doesn't cause that drain on that particular resource, is just mission critical. Like it's gonna get worse and worse until we grind to a halt if we just pretend that it's not a problem, right? And so again, a little in the weeds, but that's the type of thing that when you have a 20-year-old game, you're living with systems that were designed, created, and coded decades ago, and when you're gromming on the front of the train and priority one is getting the next track down, you never get back there and refactor the frame system, But there's some things that are just coming to a head that must be dealt with, and like that's one of them. And there's a couple other things in that vein that just need to be addressed.
Yeah, that's a fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for the example. I think that's a fantastic, understandable way to think about that.
And I think it's the type of thing the average player like wouldn't think to consider either. Because to me, a layman, like I would just assume like, oh, it's like a PNG or whatever. But clearly, it's so much more than that.
And you're a lot like me. I've said that I've been a game designer and in games for decades now, and I've spent my entire career in a trust fall with my engineers.
Right.
I've given up pretending that I'm going to be able to figure out ahead of time what's hard and what's easy when it comes to code. I'm not a coder. I don't know. And I'm constantly surprised to the point that I'm now never surprised. I'm just like, just tell me. I have no expectations. Please just let me know if this is an easy one or a hard one.
That's exactly how it is for me on the web too, or I've been doing that for a long time too. And it's like, I don't know. Like my junior designers who ask me all the time, all right, I want to do this thing on the site we're working on. And they're like, is it going to be easy for dev or not? And I'm like, that question is so difficult, and it depends on so many things that we don't understand. And like, just let's concentrate on the experience and what we want to share with people. And then, we'll figure out if we can do it on dev or not. And like you said, without distracting people from their important jobs too.
Right. And not only is that a question for devs, but if you ask 5, you'll get 6 answers. So
yeah, that's a good point. What else do you think is on the roadmap? Are there other things that are kind of coming up for you all when you think about, okay, tactical things we're thinking about on Magic Online other than, two-factor and kind of this infrastructure stuff we've talked about?
Yeah. And so in the article that I'll just say so the 3, 4, 5, and 6 are play rewards, battlefield automation, onboarding, and commander update. And that's where things have shifted a little bit. Play rewards, still working on, I was hoping that would be less coding intensive, but it's not. So it is coding intensive. So like it's not low hanging, as we would say. So like I say, while the engineers need to be focused on under the hood stuff, Tony Mayer, the product manager, and myself have a mindset of like, what can we do that doesn't need engineers to execute. And really, it's so what we've been doing in parallel to these under the hood efforts is trying to think about. We're good at collations, for example, so we can get creative with cubes. I mean, I did a big cube update partly because it was I could. It's like we're very good at that. I don't need an engineer to change a lot of cards in a cube, but it's not about no dev, it's about low dev. So like, here's something, I can't give you a date yet, but I can tell you that I did submit the final detail. Like there were some final things we were hammering out. It's basically done, but hammering out and it needs QA and stuff. So we don't have a launch date yet, but we are almost done with Freeform Commander as a new format offering. So Freeform is a format that Magic Online has had forever. It's basically low rules deck building. There's no 4 of, 1 of. You can have all lightning bolt deck if you wanted, and it's
which I do, by the way.
Yeah, right. That doesn't literally 40 lightning bolts for whatever probably doesn't do much for you, but
it does a lot for me personally.
But you could, yeah, that's true. I don't know who it's whatever floats your boat, man. But freeform is a play, like, primarily it's just one thing, so people can play draft decks, right? You can take your draft deck in there and play it because it doesn't care about your sideboard size or your deck size, right? To an extent. But it doesn't have a command zone. So there's all of these cool paper formats that use the command zone in some form or another that conceivably could be played on Magic Online, but there's no rules enforcement for the deck building. And there's no free form with a command zone where I can agree with my friend that we're going to play with this rule set, right? So we're adding freeform commander so that you could try tiny leaders. We even have it set so you can do Oathbreaker. Like you can put cards in the command zone that aren't legends and aren't creatures,
That's cool.
Yeah. And so now, of course, if you don't come up with your subset of rules that you agree to with your opponent, it's a degenerate format that's not fun. But that's not the point. Right. It's the point. The point is to create a sandbox where two people can agree on the subset of deck construction rules they're using, and by having a command zone for that, unlock tons of formats. Like you couldn't play, it doesn't, like, even though it's a freeform commander, it doesn't do the one of. And why? It's so that you can take your Commander Legends draft deck that you drafted 2 copies of the same card and still play it after the fact, that kind of thing. So that's an example of kind of low dev thing where we can really offer, with a little bit of work, but not too much, turn on a ton of formats that were not previously available to people. And again, in the space that nobody else can provide them. So we are really want to lean into those spaces where we're offering something unique to the community. And that's a good example of that too. We are also another place where you can make some tweaks without a lot of dev work. And it's really, it's number 5 on my goals list, but it's really risen up to kind of be the next thing really for design for me. And that's the onboarding experience for new players. One of the overall things that we need to do for Magic Online is grow the player base, right? We need to attract new players and keep the players we have so that it grows. And so again, once again, even though if you've been playing for 20 years, maybe you're like, the last thing I need is a new player experience, but you do need it because you need new players. So
absolutely.
So we want to make sure that when people give our game a try, that it's stickier, that they stick with us. And anybody, and I don't know when the last time you thought about what it is to be a brand new player to Magic Online, but it's not friendly. It really is it's a game about catering to people, the already converted. You're here because you already love Magic. We rarely get people to stay who don't already love Magic, and we lose a lot of people who do love Magic because there's just not a lot of direction and hand-holding in the first experience. And I want to overhaul the where we direct people to play at start, because right now we have a new player area. You can, when you upgrade your account, you get some new player points that can be used for these separate queues, and then they pay out some more new player points, and you can stay around in there. My huge issue with that is twofold, 2 huge issues. First, it encourages you to stay separate from the main game. Like the game's happening over here, and we've created this new player space over here that can only be played by people with new player points. And so the queues are affected by how many new players are around with new player points. And then we give you new player points as a reward, which kind of encourages you to stay there instead of like graduating. And so it encourages you to stay there instead of graduating, and it isolates you from the rest of the Magic Online playing community. And so what we can do for that experience that doesn't require a ton of dev is move it towards a format where we can have multiple that you can enter with new player points or with regular points, and there's something in it for everybody. It's not just about new players. And the current thinking, things could always change. So I'll say current thinking when I'm saying this is not nailed down or whatever. But the current thinking is that Jumpstart should be a new player experience. But we can do it. We can do it with our special brand of it. Our depth of catalog. We can do a custom Jumpstart that appeals to both experienced players, because we can put lots of cool, amazing, iconic stuff in it. But it appeals to new players, and we give them the ability to play in, and we don't reward them with more new player points. You get, we get you in the rest of the economy and join. And that's kind of, and a lot of it falls out from there. And this is where I'm in mid design basically, but I see that as a place that also then ties into play rewards, right? Like one of the things on my list is that the modern gamer expects, and understandably, what do I get from in this experience besides just the fun of the game? Like what rewards do I get for winning today? And it's harder for Magic Online to do that. Like Games Arena is just one example. Many games do this kind of thing right now, right? And that's why it is somewhat of an expectation. But most of the games that do it are closed economies. You can't trade stuff off of your account. So it's much harder for Magic Online to just give stuff to people for playing, because if you can turn around and trade it, then we have to take that into account, and it suddenly has this value that is outsized for what the system can bear, right? Whereas when you can say, oh, sure, here's a cosmetic, here's a thing, here's a card even, but you can't trade it, that's much safer for games that have that going on. Nonetheless, there are things we can do there to attract players back to make you think, oh yeah, right, if I go play Magic Online today, I can get that or work towards that thing at least. And so I really want some of that in, and we will probably tie that into the new player queue. How to, play in this and play in the, and I say I don't even call it a new player queue because that makes it sound like something that you don't want to do.
Right.
Look at this this super jump queue.
Jumpstart queue.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like this Jumpstart with power, right? Like that seems cool. Like I want to go do that. And so that's what we want to accomplish is getting existing players excited about participating in the experiences we're pointing new players at, so that they to the extent that people do chat and are nice to each other online. It does happen. I swear, I've made so many friends on Magic Online because they're nice and they say, hey, and you talk. And so like giving new players a chance to meet existing players and have that sense of community is important. And that's the kind of thing we can get done without hopefully heavy dev.
Right.
But then
there's stuff you're thinking about here on both of those things too, Ryan, with, whether it's play rewards or new players, the things that you're thinking about in the ecosystem too. And I think it's important for everybody to realize is that the game is not just the game, right? Like there's also the community part that you want to manage, and some of that new player onboarding experience. Maybe you're thinking about things like the website, or you're thinking about the Discord, or you're thinking about how do we appeal to people who are interested in Magic, but maybe don't play paper, but maybe want to check it out and they don't, so there's lots of, it's a more complicated problem than just like making the game within the space of the game amazing. There's also all the stuff that attaches to it to support the community of people that play it, right? So I'm sure there's some of those hookups going on, even if you're kind of like, hey, I'm just brainstorming here now, where it's kind of like we have a Discord for Magic Online. We have some people who want to run tournaments for fun in there, like helping people, or, like there's stuff like that can happen that's not even on the platform that just people go and do and have fun with, but use the platform to have fun. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many, like that's in the Vintage Cube, for example. It's been great to get feedback from players directly in Discord. If anybody listening or watching has communicated with me on Discord about Vintage Cube, thank you. Really appreciate you taking that time. And I want to try to find ways to more deliberately and accurately, like, measure players' opinions about certain cube things, like in and out, like what kind of emoji voting system can we do in Discord on, here's a card, should it be in or out, and then people emoji vote or that kind of thing. So these are the types of ideas I'm exploring to get the community more involved in the decision making, and making sure that the community knows they're being heard and have an avenue to be heard if they've got something to say.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think this could be a great time to transition to a topic we've alluded to a couple times, which is the economy. Because the MTGO economy is unique from any other online game I've played. And I think that's something that players like both have to learn how to manage. Sometimes they have to learn how to grapple with it. And we've seen a lot of services, a cottage industry emerge to sort of help kind of grease those wheels even. So, for instance, MTGO has the occasional all access passes. We also have mana traders. Is there, a potential future where all access becomes evergreen? Do you see mana traders as a critical part of the economy that you don't necessarily want to create possible friction there? How do you think about the economy as the creative director?
Well, it's a team effort to assess the economy right now with myself and Tony and our EP Sarah and the team in general. But it is a complicated beast for sure. Let's see. Your first question was: is all access something that could become evergreen or permanent? Sure, everything's on the table. Like we're considering all this type of stuff, but we're considering it so carefully because this is an economy that has spent 20 years settling into place and getting comfortable and familiar and understood. And when you talk about offering, not needing cards, not needing to collect to be able to play, it's appealing, obviously, when we're doing it, but it's an impact to the economy that has to be taken with extreme caution. And so, in a sense, the all access things we're doing now are informing those discussions. Informing our understanding of its effect on the economy and what a world could look like in which there was always a way to be able to participate in a thing without necessarily having all the cards right now. That's very valuable to me. I mean, one thing I've said internally a lot, and I'll say here to you, is that there's really only 4 things I want players doing on Magic Online: building decks, drafting, playing, or socializing. If you're doing one of those 4 things, great. That's great. Anything else you're doing is a means to one of those other things, and I want it to be as painless as possible. And so that's my mentality about where to take the economy in terms of those types of factors. I really think we really want to get people out of and also trade is so daunting, right? Like, I mean,
the trade interface is, that was one of the wildest things to me when I first played Magic Online, back in 2008. I was like, wow, we go and we trade and we got to figure out how that works. I mean, it's daunting.
It is daunting. And to that point, I would say, I'll pull it back and talk about game design more in the abstract. I've spent most of my career as a systems designer. And you design your systems and you unleash them on the players and they engage with them. And when players engage with systems in ways you didn't expect, and they do it to accomplish things that they want accomplished that you weren't providing for them, that's kind of your roadmap. Your players are showing you, not just telling you, they're showing you what they want. And when other people step in and say, we can help people get what they want, and that's successful, that's a message as well. So again, I want players to have the deck they want ready to play ASAP. That's my fundamental bottom line. And I'm not going to do, and we're not going to do anything that makes that worse. We want to find ways to make that better, and we're not going to do anything rash to make that worse. And to the extent that there are systems and people doing things to fill gaps in our offerings, that again is just lessons for us on what we need to be doing. Yeah,
and obviously there's tons for you to figure out there. Everything, like you said, everything's on the table, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
But yeah, I trade. It's not even on my goals article list because it is such an undertaking. But it's also part of the unique thing. I've been drumbeating our competitive advantages, and you could argue that peer-to-peer object trading is a competitive advantage. There's not other games that really have it. I don't think of it as much of one because of the how difficult it is to use in its current state. I think it could become one if it had less friction on the system. I would think of it as more of an advantage. As it is, I think of it as a problem to solve.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to think about Magic in the context. I mean, we have one that's not a trading card game. Arena is a version of Magic that is not a trading card game. But I mean, Magic fundamentally, when it comes to paper, it's hooked into some kind of economic system, and Magic Online was built to be a reflection of paper, and so it is, right? And that's where we're at still.
Yeah, and one of our challenges is to break that mindset and not feel like that's the fundamental operating principle of Magic Online, is that we should be like a game store, right? It's
Got it.
That's not the goal.
Right.
That we can be is a nice tool, but it's incorrect to face every issue with what would a game store do, and then try to do that Magic Online style. But it's a good question to ask: what would a game store do? But then you ask if that's right for Magic Online. You don't just assume it is because we are the digital game store or whatever.
Right.
So and it's like there's just lessons everywhere. Like a lot of people. I saw one or two comments in the world that were worried about me taking over Magic Online and taking over. That's a hubris-filled statement. Yeah, joining Magic Online leadership. People were worried about that because he's going to make it Arena. And first of all, like, if you could just make Magic Online Arena, that's what Wizards would have done.
Right. Absolutely.
But I don't know what that means. I can sense the fear there. I think but I don't understand the fear because it's not articulated. You're saying you're afraid of something, but it's abstractly, I'm afraid that it'll be like Arena, but like what part? And there's some things like, I know, for example, Arena has inherent information leaks due to the auto passing, right? Like if you are on top of it and the game pauses, I know that you've got a 1 mana instant because you had a single planes up in a draft format with nothing free, no convoke. So, that's it. You've got, right? That is the type of thing I think players are worried about, like that, or maybe that best of one will take over or something. I mean, we did try some best of one, but like that's just smart. If to be honest, we're not even doing it anymore. Like because you all told us, but we need to ask. You've got to ask. Like part of design and running a game and managing a game like this is taking a swing, throwing it out there, and letting players vote with their actions. And so there were people who reacted to even the existence of best of one on Magic Online as blasphemy. But it's like, look, I needed to look at the fact that best of one is wildly popular on Arena. It is the dominant way people play that. So it's an important question then to ask the Magic Online community, do you want this too? And we did. We asked that question, but don't freak out because we're asking questions. All you need to do is vote with your behavior, and we're paying attention, and we'll hear you loud and clear if you say that you don't want it as a collective group. And if you say as an individual, I don't want it, and then we keep offering it, other people have said they want it. Hopefully we haven't taken anything away from you, and whatever you love about your Magic Online experience is still there for you. We're trying to be additive and not take anything away. But queue health is tough. You can't just willy-nilly add new queues to your game because you add wait time to every one of your experiences with every new one that you pile on. So it's a careful dance, which is why we didn't just like add best of one forever. It's just like, let's do some test balloons here and see, right? So do I want to make Magic Online like Arena? Only in the ways where Arena has shown the world how to do digital Magic better. I mean, and that's just learning lessons from others, which is a valuable thing to do. So I have no intentions on making Magic Online Arena. I don't even know what that means, but I have full intention to continue to look at what other people are doing in the Magic space and trying to learn from that and apply that to Magic Online. Yeah.
That's awesome. And, I think when people, when Arena was first announced, people got scared really quickly that Magic Online was just going to fade away. Right. And I think that it's been a number of years now. We had cards prices on Magic Online crash during that time just from news. It's like it was some kind of speculation, and I think that it's clear, there's a team dedicated to making Magic Online great, making it be what it's good at, and making sure that there's a place for players who care about the things that Magic Online is good at, that they have a place to play the game that they want to. And that's kind of the best that we could hope for, right, at this point in time, because it's yeah. So
Ryan, you alluded a couple times to limited engagement in the limited formats as something that you want to drive more of. And knowing you, I feel like part of that might come from you being a lover of limited. And as you may know, we come from the perspective of lovers of constructed, and that's primarily how we engage with MTGO. I'm curious, is there, in terms of the KPIs of MTGO success internally, are different formats weighted differently? Do you pay attention to like how many people are playing Modern, Pioneer, Legacy versus how many people are drafting? And do you have almost like initiatives to try to drive more people in one direction or the other?
We are definitely paying attention to what people are playing, and we have all sorts of little format decisions to make all the time. This is largely in Tony Mayer's court. Tony's awesome, and he's putting his brain towards this. Like, he's obsessed with Magic Online. It's good for you all.
That's good.
And he is really the one taking a look at format numbers and slicing up for competitive seasons. I mean, we haven't really touched on that, but again, I've talked about new players and getting them and Commander and that kind of thing. And I've said that one of our pillars is eternal formats, but how? And it's like, well, because they exist, yes, but where we want to innovate and continue to think is on the competitive level, right? Since this is, we have the competitive place for these formats. That's a place where Tony thinks a lot about what the right set of formats are. We're going to do this Mox thing coming up. What are the formats going to be? And we take a look at so many things in the ecosystem. What is Wizards doing? What is, because if Wizards is making the pinnacle of competitive Magic a concern for Pioneer for the months of, for this fall, because it's going to be, then we want to match that. Like, we want to be a place where people can come and practice that, so that drives those decisions. Population drives those decisions. Things like, well, we don't want to offer Vintage and Vintage Cube in the same one. So there's this delicate balance of representation of all these cool formats that we offer, but a recognition that they're not all equal. That Modern is largely the most popular of our kind of unique formats, but not 100% of the time. There are moments in time where something else overtakes it for a bit because of the pressures of what Wizards is laying out as the roadmap to competitive success on their end, right? So yeah, that all factors in.
I think Stan has two more questions for you, and then we will we'll call it.
Yes. All right. Well, if we have more, you'll have to bring me back.
Okay.
This is something that I will never forgive myself if I don't at least ask. Is there a universe where MTGO can run natively on a Macintosh, so I can stop buying Windows machines once and for all?
Not until we're on different tech. I mean, the sad truth of it is that, I don't know if it's sad. Let's just call it the truth of it is our technology forces our hand on certain decisions, and for better or for worse, our technology decisions were made long ago that make it virtually impossible, and certainly impossible from a P&L business sensibility standpoint, to undergo an effort to take this current experience and make it Mac native. That makes
Yeah.
no sense, and it will never happen. I'll tell you that right now. Never going to happen. However, this is kind of proof in the pudding time for us. Like this next year plus, is the existing Magic Online team who's made this transition over to Daybreak. It's kind of our chance to show Daybreak headquarters, Daybreak, the umbrella company that is managing us, that this was a great decision. You're going to be thrilled that you've put money into this, and we're going to show you that you should put more money into this. And so we do these things that I've laid out on the roadmap within the current tech and the current structure, and we grow our audience, and we make the new experience better, and players are sticking around. That is the type of thing that would give a parent company like Daybreak the confidence to make a huge multi-year investment in something like a complete overhaul of the foundational tech that this is built on.
Right.
And that's the plan. If I'm back here in some number of years from now and we're fist pumping native Mac clients, it's because things have gone so well that we got the budget to really take that massive swing and get this game into effectively different tech, because Mac is not realistic in any shape or form on the current tech.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep in mind, Magic Online came out right around the time the second generation of iMacs came out, I think, if we think about it that way. I mean, we're talking, this is a time when nobody thought anybody was going to be gaming on a Mac in 2002. So, like, you can understand how it ended up in this place. And also, I think that the other underlying thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but, if you move the game to a different foundational tech, it also enables a whole lot of other things for you to be able to do. And the Mac thing is probably just an offshoot of being able to do more stability, different things on the platform, other things that are just come with
Mac nativity is just a side win that you would get from this massive project. But it's almost redoing the game. Right. But this is also where I am so not an engineer. Don't quote me on that, or if you quote me on that part too.
On the no,
on the that I'm not an engineer, but the engineers I've talked to have looked at that as a 3 to 5 year type project to completely remake the game on a different engine technology that is not Windows based. I mean, the engine tech we're on has Windows in the name, and it's not the right place to be. But here we are, and we can't just hop off because we don't like it. So here we are.
Well, hopefully it heartens you to know that your technology is the reason I own a Dell. I'm a marketing bro. I live and die by Macintosh. So I just need to play Magic Online.
You're not far off from me. My first computer was a Mac Classic in I got it in 1989. Actually, my first computer was a Commodore 64. But my first computer that way was a Mac, and I didn't get a PC until I was hired to work in the game industry for the first time. Sierra Online hired me to be their documentation manager on the Hoyle line of casual gaming software. I basically spent most of my career transliterating tabletop physical games into digital experiences. And I was working for a PC game company. I was like, I guess I have to get a PC. Sorry, lost my train there. But yeah, it was just like, point is, I too, I feel you, Mac users. I was one until for most of my computing career, until I actually got into making video games. So I feel you, but that's the harsh truth. It's not coming until we're so successful that we get to take a 3 to 5 year project to overhaul the entire game.
So the last piece I wanted to talk about, it actually just came to me while we were having this conversation, and you were talking about building free-form Commander. And it reminded me of the sign-off you did with Marshall on your last LR appearance, where you sort of brainstormed / talked about the possibilities of MTGO in terms of creative expression of card collation and whatnot. So this is me pitching you an idea because I now have your ear. And it's inspired in part by things that I've heard within the Dive Down Discord, Magic communities, and that's surrounding one of, I think, many constructed Magic players' favorite topics, and that's the banned list. This is my pitch. MTGO should have a semi-official queue that plays with the banned list. People frequently say in Modern that Twin should be unbanned. I feel like MTGO is uniquely positioned to kind of prove them right or wrong. And I wonder, maybe you can tell me now, like, what's that relationship like between Daybreak and Wizards? Where do you have the freedom to do things like that, where you kind of like experiment with existing formats?
We can do whatever we want in that vein as long as we don't call it modern, right? You know, as long as we don't misrepresent what the format is, we have full flexibility to do that kind of thing, and we are thinking along those lines. I don't want to get too much into it because it's not baked enough to offer any kind of realistic detail at this point. But I'll say that we do have design documents and things in flight for systems that would offer that kind of custom, almost rotating format. You can imagine imagine a queue you join, but then the rule, like week to week, the rules could change, and so maybe Twin is unbanned this week, but then next week it's something else changes about the format. So we could have a constantly rotating format. It's about, I come back to queue health though. You start getting excited about the different things that you can do, but you offer too many different things and then nobody's doing anything because everybody's waiting for somebody else to come do their thing. And so we got to be careful about that. And that's why, like, we're introducing this freeform commander, but we're deprecating commander 1v1. So because commander 1v1 is a format that was effectively a subset of what this new format can offer. So we were able to at least take one away. It's mainly in the competitive queues, though, that you want to be really concerned about that, where people are paying. When I say competitive, right, where people are paying to play, you really need to be concerned about the pace at which it's firing. So that's the cautionary tale about all of the ideas to try this, and this, and this. You got to do it a little bit at a time and switch it through. But that's definitely one we want to play around with. And again, it's one where we need to ask the players if it's really what they want. Because I love theory crafting this kind of stuff in my head. Like that sign off was mainly a list of things that came to me as I was working on the Vintage Cube. It was like because I would go, I wish, and I'd write that down. So it's like, it's just this list of ideas that came up in the course of working on it, and it's been really fun though. I'm glad to be back. It's like, it's so fun to be sparked by all that. And I think we're just going to keep asking players if it's what they want, because I like the idea of because we've theory crafted. It could be really fun to try see if Twin is unbannable in Modern for a week. But you say that, but then if I offer that, are you going to go click that button?
Right.
Because some people say one thing and then do differently. That's why I say, that's why those data hooks are so important. Like, we really need to be understanding what you all are doing, because as wonderful as the Discord and the forums are as a way to communicate directly in plain English to me about what you're thinking and feeling, nothing can replace the hard truth of, we know where you clicked.
Right. Nothing replaces the truth.
We've seen the heat maps.
And so that's what dictates, that's the thing we're going to pay close attention to. And if you're worried about blasphemy or that's not authentic or they must be crazy, take a breath. We're probably asking you a question and you can answer it by ignoring the thing. We'll hear it loud and clear when you do not engage with it. Right.
That's awesome.
Wow. Dave, any final burning questions?
I don't think so. Just Ryan, thank you so much for your time. And I think everybody who's listening should feel really excited. I'm personally really excited that you're one of the people helping us make sure that Magic Online goes on into the next kind of era of Magic. And so appreciate your hard work and everything like that for sure. And appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And I want to just call out the Magic Online team again. I come and do appearances and talk and try to speak for the team and everything, but we are so lucky to have the team behind the scenes doing the work they do to keep this train running and going. And, I thought I was going to be coming in, for example, and doing a lot of heavy card implementation design, like UX of, I don't really need to. The team is so good at this now. They tell me, and also so many things are locked into play. But anyway, the Magic Online team is one of the most dedicated software teams I've ever worked with. You don't often get to love the game that you work on in the game industry. You're often in a place where there's a lot of games that need to get made, and you might not love it, but code it, dang it. And we have a team of talented people that love the game, and it's been vital to making this transition even work. So thanks, team. You all are great, and it's easy for me to come out here and talk about stuff, but without the dedicated team hard at work behind the scenes, I wouldn't be here. Yeah, they're amazing. Thanks, team.
Here, here. Thanks, team. And thank you, Ryan. Really, this exceeded all expectations. I was excited to have you on, and
I'm so glad I came. It was a good chat. I know we're going to come up with each of us like a bunch of stuff we wish you would ask / said. So you just have to follow up with another visit sometime soon.
And anytime, you let us know if there's any time we can help you get some of your thoughts out to people. We're glad to help with that. So
yeah, maybe next time when we have a good something cool we're launching, I'll come back on.
That'd be awesome.
We'll be your propaganda arm, happily. And that wraps up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, please do leave us a rating and review. We will thank you on air. And if it is a noteworthy review, maybe we'll even mention some specific details that you say about us to pat our own back and make the listeners laugh. Show us how funny you really are. If you do want to submit a question to us, though, you can reach out via Twitter at @thedivedown, all one word. You can even email us, thedivedown@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/thedivedown, and check out our store at thedivedown.com/store. Also, shout out to Mana Traders for sponsoring The Dive Down. Sign up for Mana Traders using promo code TheDiveDown2023, all one word, to get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. Also, get some amazing shaving soaps, body soaps, fragrances, and more from our friends at Barrister and Mann using the Dive Down M23 promo code to get 15% off your first order from Barrister and Mann. That's the Dive Down M23. And then save some money on paper cards from our friends at Nerd Rage Gaming with code DIVE8 for all of your orders over at Nerd Rage Gaming. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceplit for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and set up two-factor authorization!
what concert are you going to?
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're playing a 3-night. They're doing a 3-night stand at a random, like the You Pick Pumpkin Patch and Berry Farm type places. Like
Sure.
It's that like they booked a place like that for 3 days, and they're gonna play 3 shows. And it's a band that both I have. My eldest is 22, and my youngest is going to be 21 this fall.
Wow.
And I've by influencing their musical listening over the years, I got them.
Right.
We like a lot of the same stuff, so I go to a lot of concerts, and I'm mostly standing next to one of my kids when I am there. It's pretty great.
That's fantastic. Nice. I can't wait. My kids are 7 and 5, so I'm trying. But we're very much in Encanto.
Like, yeah. I went. I had the mid childhood drought of live music, and then the pandemic turned it all off. And then my kids grew up. The pandemic ended, and I'm going ham. I went to 65 shows last year, and I'm on pace to beat it this year.
That's awesome! Dude. Wow, amazing.
Cool dad in the house.
What was your best show last year? Can we ask like your favorite one or two from last year?
Let's see. I had, I mean, look, you don't usually lead with this with people because but I'm a big fish fan.
Okay.
And I saw it. That's basically my favorite place to be.
Awesome.
So I saw several fish shows last year that were pretty great. But in the non vein, let's see. I should bring up my list. What jumps out at me? I saw Samara Joy, who you may never heard of. She's a jazz vocalist. I'm not a jazz guy, but my stepmom is, and she took me to hear her. And she got tickets before she won 2 Grammys, like Best New Artist and Best Vocal Jazz Album, and she completely blew me away. One of the best vocal performances I've ever seen live. And there's no justice in music. That was a $20 ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Spotify wouldn't exist if there was justice in music, right?
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Exactly. And then, like, what's the big show I saw? Oh man, I saw a really cool show. There's this guy, Garth. What's his last name? It doesn't even matter. He's like a DJ, but he does this thing called Laserface, where he does a set with lasers. But now imagine a show with like too many lasers, and then multiply that by 10.
Wow.
And then suddenly it's the right number of lasers again. And that was really cool. Again, I'm not like an EDM guy, but it was just it was a great experience. Man, yeah, it's live music is my vacation, my therapy, my exercise, my entertainment. You know,
that's fantastic.
I want to go on a limb here. Do you like Ween?
I do. Yeah, I like Ween. I have not seen them live yet. They're on my list. They keep coming through. They're on my bucket list to catch live.
Well, I think they're either on tour now or about to go on tour. Now's your chance. It's coming up.
When we had Seth from Magic Goldfish on, Stan and Seth talked about Ween for like 15 minutes. It was a lot of Ween content.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I could join that crew. Yeah.
That's basically the podcast I've always wanted to do. Is like every episode is about a different Ween song, and it goes on for 300 episodes.
Here,
the world needs it.
I can be a chaotic guy. So in order to track all these shows, I actually started making I have a Google Doc that I share with my friends too, because I obviously want to get them to go to shows with me. But you can browse that at your leisure if you want to see what I've been seeing and what I've been going to.
Thank you so much.
What I have coming up. Some of them have little reviews too. So
that's fantastic. I'm gonna take a look at this a little later on.
Yeah. Not exactly the topic of the day.